Lush, and I'm here at the Hub Culture Pavilion in Davos. Absolutely delighted to be joined by John McArthur, fellow at the Brookings Institution and also at the UN Foundation. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you so much for having me, Edie.
So I want to know what the new Millennium Development Goals are.
Well, first thing, there's a new name. It looks like they're going to be called the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay.
That's going to be decided this September at a large gathering of world leaders, the first in a generation summit to actually set the course through to 2030. What's different in substance? Well, first thing is finishing the job on extreme poverty in its many forms. That's income poverty, $1 a day, that's child survival, that's maternal health. But then the second thing is actually tackling the inequality agenda, social exclusion, who's really left behind, who's not included in society. And then the third is, I would say, the biggest gap of the MDGs is the environmental sustainability. That's climate, that's our oceans, that's how we manage our environment. Those are the three big topics that we're looking at.
Okay, I'm interested in how broad they are. Do you think that's a bit scary? Do you think there's too many?
A lot of people are scared about that. The other side of it is the world's pretty big and complicated.
Right.
So right now there's a draft of 17 targets and several dozen, I'll put it politely, or pardon me, 17 goals and several dozen targets.
Okay.
The general consensus is that there's nothing there that can really be cut out. Each of those issues is important. And so the question is, though, we're now looking not just at a developing country agenda. What does developing country even mean anymore? We're looking at a global agenda. So I really boil it down to three basic things that we're really trying to do, which are universal. The first is to set a minimum standard for humanity. What's the minimum package of services, of healthcare, of education, of bank accounts that everyone on the planet can have by 2030? And that actually applies in a lot of countries. The second thing is, how do we build stuff? How do we build our roads? How do we build our energy systems? We're in the peak moment of history of people actually moving into cities. We can actually build the cities now the way we want, or we can try and retrofit them later. It's a huge question. But then the third is, how do we set ourselves accountable? How do we have governments really own up to what they commit to, but also how do we have businesses, how do we have non-governmental organizations all track their performance in a solid playing field? So I think those are really the three big breakthrough agreements we need to see this year.
What's the point of these things? Did we actually achieve anything by having them before?
Well, the goals are just that ultimately. They're goals. And in their best case, they're tools. They can be used as a rallying point to really drive people together, a common agenda. And that's where we've seen the Millennium Development Goals have made the biggest contribution. More than anything, I would argue, in the sphere of health and global health. Big breakthroughs that were considered unimaginable 15 years ago. We've seen things like HIV/AIDS go from untreatable disease in most people's minds to millions and millions of people on treatment today, and that's considered a totally solvable problem. The numbers are actually getting pretty staggering. At least 7.5 million kids so far, more than would have been saved otherwise, have been saved since the Millennium Goals were launched. If you add on the maternal lives, the adults from AIDS and other diseases, we're probably looking at least 15 million people have been saved so far. It's a pretty big number, and that's just on one dimension.
It's nice to have some positive news here in Davos. John, thank you so much for stopping by the Hub Culture Pavilion here in Davos, and I'm Edie Lush.
Thank you.